Today we're joined by Nickie Patel. Nickie is a certified dietitian working with a variety of clients across the country. With the rise of strict diets like carnivore, all juice, vegan diets, there's more food anxiety than ever. So in today's podcast, we'll talk about how people should approach their diet and the fluid approach Nickie takes with her clients, Nickie's biggest lessons, and the emphasis on psychological factors when it comes to things like Diet Coke and other diet choices, and some of the biggest diet misconceptions that the industry has tried to sell us. Without any further ado, let's talk to Nickie. Welcome back, everybody, to my podcast. Today we got Nickie. Nickie has been a close friend of mine for this past year. We've both been trying to get into the fitness industry. So, Nickie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. Excited to be here and chatting with you. It's always a good time.
You are a dietitian, and we're going to get into your origin story. But just for the viewers, I wanted to ask you one quick question that I feel like everybody wants to ask dietitians. What is the biggest lie the fitness industry has tried to sell us that just genuinely pisses you off?
Oh my gosh. Okay. There's a lot. I would say that you need 200 grams of protein a day is the biggest lie.
200 grams.
Yeah.
I
You
feel
don't
like,
need that much to build muscle.
okay. So how
Yeah.
much do you need, would you say, roughly?
So it varies depending on your intensity of activity for the week. So if you strength train 2 to 3 times a week, you need about 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram. I think that's where people get it wrong. It's that they do a gram per pound in America, and especially like the bro science, they're thinking, okay, I'm like 200 pounds, I need to eat 200 grams of protein. It's actually a gram, 1.2 grams per kilogram. So if you're about 200 pounds, you're 92 kilograms, you need about 120 to 140 grams of protein. So I know it's like not that much of a difference. You're like, okay, that's only 60 grams less, but that 60 grams is just excess protein that you're probably spending a lot of money on, and then like just urinating out expensive protein powder. And then B, you are putting extra strain on your kidneys and your liver to filter all that protein. And so you're putting extra strain on your organs, and you're aging your organs quicker by chalking up on all this protein. So I would say the biggest lie, especially right now, I feel like protein's just like in our face. It's in like chips, it's in drinks, it's like liquid, I don't know, like clear protein powder. You don't need all this protein. I would say that that's been the biggest thing that's kind of making me mad right now.
I think I've heard, like, there's been this trend of like longevity pushing, and I feel like people are now coming around to the idea that, hey, just getting muscle and putting that like insane strain on your body might not be the best thing to do,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to not, do a bodybuilding show, or if you already have the muscle mass. Especially, I feel like a lot of times it's just about getting the right exercise and just fine tuning maybe even carbs, right? So
Yeah. No, I would
yeah.
agree with that. I feel like there's been a really nice push towards recovery, especially in females. There's not like, yes, strength train. I feel like we have came from a society of exercise needs to be strength training, but I've seen a really nice pull on that towards like low resistance strength training, towards Pilates and more recovery style workouts, which is really nice because you're building muscle, but you're also not raising your cortisol like super high. And then putting all this strain on your body and putting your hormones in whack. So it has
Makes
been really
sense.
nice to see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of Pilates and it looks really fun. The only thing that scares me doing it is I've seen some fails where people just like fall on their face because they either don't have the right balance, or
Yeah,
because there's always certain muscles that are not
yeah,
worked during strength training that you're using during Pilates and some of the balance mobility exercises. So
definitely. I feel like those compilations where you see people falling in Pilates is because people kind of go into it because they strength train in the gym and they're like, oh, I got this. This is going to be a cake. And then they end up realizing that they're not using their core at all. when they strength train. And Pilates is really all core. Like, what are these big movements that you can create with your body that are coming from your core? And so, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a tangent on Pilates, but it's a good strength training for women specifically. Males can always do it. You get into all those tiny muscle fibers that, like you said, you wouldn't when you are strength training, which where you are strength training and building these large muscle groups like bicep, triceps, like those are the muscle groups that you think when you're strength training. But in Pilates, you get into the joints and the ligaments and the deltoids and all the fibers in between. And so that's why people say it's a good way to get lean, tone, and really see the definition of muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so I started kind of switching my training from like push-pull legs more
Mm,
closer to calisthenics. So I'm taking a
mm,
break from push-pull legs because it just feels like at a certain point it kind of also gets boring if you do the same repetitive templates, like workout templates all the time.
right.
So I'm working on like a new split, but in the meantime, I've been doing a lot of calisthenics work. And the first week, the first like day that I tried doing it, I tried doing a handstand, and within 15 seconds, it was a wall-facing handstand. My
Okay.
shoulders were shaking, my
Yeah.
like abs were giving out, and I was like, "What is this?" I thought I was healthy and fit.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what Pilates would do to you. You get like the shakes, and the shakes
Yeah.
are like all those small, like I said, you're increasing the strength of the ligaments and the small muscle fibers to keep you steady.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. I like the split. I like when people do a mix of things in their week. Like they strength train, they mobility train, they do something for recovery. So
Have you always been into fitness? Like, were you just, blessed with a family that was always like, eat right, like go to the gym, or maybe not go to the gym, but at least get your
um,
exercise in?
so actually, no, I am not really blessed with that family, but I am blessed with that mom. There's like a term called like almond mom. I want to say I pretty much have like an almond mom that I grew up with. She would take me to the gym, and the gyms where there's like a little kids corner, like you're like in this glass room. Like I remember growing up in that. So I would go to her gym sessions and like sit in the glass room and play with like books and toys or whatever and watch women and men work out. And so I did have that growing up, but I also did grow up in Oklahoma, a state with one of the highest obesity rates. And so I also saw the flip side of things where if you don't take care of your body, what happens? And I think that was more key for me getting into health and wellness. Just seeing what really happens long term when you don't take care of yourself, and the results of your environment as well. Because I don't really blame the people. I sometimes put a lot of blame on the environment that they grew up in, and sometimes you only know what you know, right? So
Yes.
those two things I really think put things into perspective for me.
I think when it comes to health and fitness, it's definitely a game of nurture instead of nature. Like nobody's born just,
Yeah, yeah,
ready
I
to be
didn't come
healthy
out
for
the
the rest of their
womb.
lives.
Exactly. I didn't come out the womb like, oh, I got to get in the gym. Actually, for me, I entered into college and I got a contract to be a model. So I signed with an agency, and that's where I really kick-started. Unfortunately, my agency was saying that I needed to lose 10 to 15 pounds to get to some of the jobs that I really wanted, which were like runway. So that was really my first exposure into diet culture. I went on a whole deep dive, and I feel like a lot of people get into health and fitness this way. Something kind of pivots in their life where they go in a deep dive and they start researching. So I started researching what kind of diet I needed to be on at that time, and I chose the vegan diet to lose the weight. I did get to like a really unhealthy weight, but that also taught me that okay, there's two sides of the spectrum. There's like an unhealthy weight due to obesity, and there's unhealthy weight due to being way too thin. And there's like kind of a healthy weight. There's a balance that you need to be at in between. So that's what that taught me. But actually, in college, I was also a health and exercise science major, so kinesiology. So nutrition wasn't always first. I didn't even plan on being a dietitian when I entered into college. That kind of came about when I started learning about nutrition through my modeling journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I've also heard horror stories about models. I think there was a trend a few years back where it was like the juice diet, where you could only
Yes.
like take
Oh,
in liquid.
oh my gosh. Okay, so fortunately, I never did that. But I now, as a dietitian, still have people coming to me saying that they're going to do a cleanse for 2 weeks. And this cleanse is going to be just pure liquids, juice. And I get so scared because at one point, like, you want to support them, but you also want to educate people to know that that's actually a cleanse is really, it's just a made up word. And that's just not the way to do it. And what's going to happen is that you're going to go on this juice cleanse for 2 weeks. You're going to lose a lot of weight, probably will be water weight. You're going to be really hungry. So, psychologically, you're going to start building up your cravings for carbs because that's what your body needs to really function. So, when you get off this juice cleanse, that's the first thing your body's going to reach for. You're going to reach for bread, pasta, pizza, everything so that you can get back into regular functioning that your body really needs, especially your brain and your organs, and then you gain all the weight back. So it's not sustainable as a lot of diets are. A lot of it's just the caveat of yo-yo dieting. It's really at the top is the juice cleanse, the cabbage soup cleanse, like all of those. If I see
Yeah.
cleanse behind a diet, I'm just like, let's not do it. It's not a
Yeah,
cleanse.
there's probably like a marketing incentive or like a marketing push that somebody's trying to do, right? They just slap on cleanse
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
but another thing about the liquid diet, I feel like your stomach and your organs are built to also get solids and break those down. So do you know if like I feel like that would completely change the way that your stomach works, maybe introduce some like anomalies that might come
Hmm.
back to bite you later on.
I do. Okay. So with the liquid diet, let's say you do it for 2 weeks, you will be putting your intestines on a GI rest. So basically they won't be pushing and pulling and having all this motility like that they normally would, which is okay. I actually think that a 1 day fast, it's shown in longevity research, can be really good for something called autophagy, which means that you're putting your body in a starvation mode so that it starts cleaning up cellular debris and starts kind of, it's like a vacuum, like cleaning things up so that you don't need all of this waste in your cells, and that helps with longevity, having better cellular health, whatever. But doing it for 2 weeks, you're going to have bacterial displacement. You're just going to have a whole host of other issues. I think the biggest issue still is just the psychological component behind it, in which you come off and you're just craving all these things. Like that's the issue I've seen. Now, as far as like digestive issues, I haven't seen anything about that. So I wouldn't really know what
Gotcha.
to say on that. But I will say it's more of it's like I said, the cherry on the top of yo-yo dieting is the juice cleanse. Yeah.
Yeah. And the psychological impacts that you mentioned, I feel like
Mhm.
are present in both ends of the spectrum, right? Like I feel
Mhm.
like some people that are anorexic, they've just focused so much on their macros and their micros and just like dialing it down to perfection,
Right.
which it seems like it's almost counterintuitive, right? Like your body kind of knows what it needs. And if you're not listening to it, and if you're always going against it, you're probably building something there that is not going to be healthy.
Yeah, definitely. There is a point where the food that you start eating starts becoming macros instead of food. You start seeing your plate as like, okay, I'm hitting my 50 grams of this and 50 grams of this. And that's where I'm like, are you really enjoying this? Like that's where I ask, like, food at the end of the day is a pleasure for humans. It's like we came to this earth, it's something we're supposed to enjoy the way we do our relationships. So I really like to cultivate that with the people that I work with. Make sure that everything I give you, yes, hits your fitness goals, but also is like, I'm really excited to make this. Me and my family are going to really like enjoy this, especially like, it's not just you cooking for yourself. Like if you're cooking for a family, that your kids are going to be really excited to eat this as well. So I try to kind of pull people away from thinking that way and pull people towards what's going to make you excited to eat. but still hits your fitness goals, and everyone around you is going to enjoy it as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
And so I guess when it comes to dieting, you are on the side that's more like do what works for you, and don't try to push yourself too much. But can you think of like a scenario where it would make sense for someone to dial in their macros? Like when would it make sense to act? Because that's kind of a big thing, right?
Yeah.
People are doing it, and some
Yeah.
people are not doing it in an unhealthy way. Some people are
Yeah.
actually being somewhat balanced with it. So when is it right to dial down on a specific diet?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think a lot of it's dieting is very individualized. That's why I like to take honestly the first month to just get to know someone. Usually, when you work with a dietitian or hopefully even with a trainer, that first month, I'm not even pushing like a specific plan. Like, I'm really getting to know you and we're making like some fine tuned tweaks here and there. So, there's some people where the macros and the tracking, it's just not going to work. You're really busy. You work 50 hours a week. You have 6 kids, like whatever it looks like. It's just like it's going to be a very, I don't want dieting to feel like a chore. So if pulling out your phone and getting that thing in, even though that data really helps me, I'm not going to make you do it. We're going to come and you're going to reflect on kind of how it all went in your mind. And then on the other side, macros really do count. If you are coming to me, you are very healthy, and now you are just pushing that 5%, like you said, like the longevity, the optimization. Maybe you're an athlete. Those 5% really count if you're an athlete, because it's going to make the difference between first and second place. It's like that nutrition is really going to make a difference between you and the other person competing against a bodybuilding competition, whatever it looks like. That's when nutrition gets really important. Or let's say, you're a college male. This is very typical as well. You're a college male and you want to build muscle. That's usually around the time in a male's life that they're like, all right, I need to get out there. I want to start dating. I want to look good. I need to build muscle in the gym. And so that's kind of the population where I see where they want to start counting their macros. And honestly, that makes sense as long as you're not taking it too crazy, because you do need to hit certain macro goals to start muscle protein synthesis, so the building of muscle. Not 200 grams, but yes, like if you're eating 20 grams of protein and you're lifting, we're not going to see any difference in the gym. So it's so varied. Like, I really like to get to know the person and understand their health goals. And if it's not muscle building in that last 5%, maybe we don't need a track. But there are a lot of cases where macros and tracking and hitting certain goals and numbers really do matter. Also, it depends on the person. Like, maybe you are a really busy mom, but you're like type A and you like to really take control of your health and you want to run a marathon next year. Like, it's so varied, it's so nuanced by person to person. I know that's like, it's not a black and white answer, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're trying to push for that muscle building phase, or again, if
Yeah.
you're like a performance athlete and you just need to dial things down and you just need
Yeah.
progress quick, um, especially if you're already healthy, it makes sense to kind of get a little bit more specific with that. One thing that we talked about with Terry, which was the very first episode that we filmed,
Mm.
he was talking about how exercise programs differ like drastically by between the ages. So if
Mm.
somebody's young, then he's not scared to like kind of put them in to like strength training and just start off that. And then he was saying for the older generation, he would basically start them off with body weight exercises and slowly kind of gear them towards a little bit of strength training. Granted, it's not like squat 185 or something like that, but it was
Yeah,
like, let's see if we can put a bar behind your back just so that it has some bone density work, and just being able to pick something up without, injuring yourself, especially for the older community. Is there
yeah.
something like a similar framework? And I know you're not the type to generalize this sort of stuff, but is there like a framework that you think of when you're working with somebody that is younger, maybe let's say between their 20s, early 30s, and somebody that is older, maybe like 50 and up?
Yeah, no, there definitely is. And I like how you mentioned that, because I even though I do nutrition, I also like to prescribe exercise plans, and try to see where I can help you out there as well, even though it is over telehealth and I'm talking to people online. And so when it comes to the older population, I like do the same thing. You know, you want to use like resistance bands, no weights. Now, when it comes to nutrition, my younger clients, I notice they have more time on their hand. And they're like really into this, you know, they really want to do it rather than some of like my older clients. It's just like, I'm really busy. Can you just like outsource my health for me? Like, can I just hand this over to you and you just tell me what to do, please? Like, you know, and so I see a difference there where like the younger clients, like we'll sit down and I'm like, okay, what are you doing this week? And we're going to put together a plan, and they really feel in control and they have the time to do it. Versus as we move into the 30s and 40s, your life gets crazy. So how can I help take the load off? And, you know, I learn your preference as a person, your health goals, what foods you like to eat, and I help you build that plan. Like it's more of time efficiency and like what is my whole family going to eat in 30s and 40s versus in your 20s. I have an hour to make dinner. I can make it yummy. It's just me eating, like, you know, so it varies. Like the recipes I give to like 20s are going to be a little bit more strict. Like we're looking at macros, they have strict fitness goals, and maybe that recipe takes 45 minutes to an hour to make. Like they want to enjoy it with their partner, whatever it looks like. Versus in your 30s, I'm coming back home at 7 p.m. I need a quick 15-minute sheet pan meal. My whole family needs to eat it. It still needs to fit in my day. So that's kind of the framework I like to take is how much time do you have? Where are you at in your life? What stage are you in? Like when we think of health and wellness and we think of nutrition, we like to put it in a box. But wellness is like a lot more than that. It is, how stressed are you? What does your work-life balance look like? When you come home, would you take out an hour to cook? You know, and so if those things are not fitting in the puzzle, I'm not giving you this huge plan. I'm giving you something that you can do. If you're a lot of the people that come to me, they're like new parents and they realize their health is kind of going down the drain because now they're taking care of someone else's health and they're like, wait, I'm not even thinking about myself. Like, okay, cool. Can you just wake up in the morning and get a protein bar and a fruit in, you know, like you don't have to sit down and make this huge yogurt bowl that looks so pretty. Which is something I see in a lot of my younger clients who want to really romanticize like their health and their fitness. And honestly, like some of my favorite people to work with because that's where it gets fun, right? But when you get older, that's not the case, you know, and we got to really figure out how to be healthy with little time. So hopefully that answered that. I think
Yeah.
the framework is really less about aging and it changes your health because you still got to get your protein in, still got to get your fiber, still got to get your micronutrients, and more about what does your life look like around nutrition and how can I still make sure you can fit this in and enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as people get busier, this concept of like outsourcing your health also expands to their diet, which is why we have restaurants and fast food. So, first question, do you have any like favorite restaurants that you're like, okay, if I need to eat something, I'm gonna just pick something up right at this place. So, what is like your like top favorite restaurant for health, quick access for those people that don't have the time that maybe somebody in their 20s might?
That's a really good question. Honestly, no one has ever asked me that. Um, so I used to live in Miami, and if there's any listeners that are gonna live in Miami or living in Miami, whatever, Pure Vita, like anything on that menu, so healthy. And I don't even know if you know that place, but if any of these listeners know what Pure Vita is, hopefully there's somebody. Um,
Is it like a cafe or is
it
it
is like a cafe. And in
okay.
Austin, now I live in Austin, so there's something similar. It's called Swedish Hill. Salads, soups, sandwiches. Like when you think of those places, there's gonna be a lot of fresh raw ingredients, which is good. So I like thinking of those places. Now, for most of my clients, that's not the case. And something I like to do is helping them prepare for their travels because that's when we eat out the most, right? So that's when they freak out. They're not in control anymore. Like they're like, I don't have my kitchen. Like, what am I gonna do? And so I'm like, cool, let's drop a pin. Like I'll literally open up my Google Maps. Let's drop a pin where you're going for maybe a work conference and let's see how if I were you, how I would navigate this. So we'll drop a pin in something like New Orleans, where close where they're gonna stay at. I'm like, cool, you can walk to this cafe. Every coffee shop has like a fruit. Grab a fruit, grab a cortado, go on a walk. When it comes to traveling, okay, now I'm going on a separate tangent outside of fast foods, but when it comes to traveling, I like to teach people that, especially if you're going to outsource nutrition to a restaurant, being mindful about what your choices are on the menu. Try to get some movement in that day and eat things in moderation. So still enjoy yourself. Like I said, food is very social. It's our pleasure. Like the holidays are coming up, right? We're gonna have Thanksgiving, we're gonna have Christmas. This is how we can't look at our Thanksgiving plate and think macros. Like we gotta still be able to enjoy ourselves. And so
Be human at the end of the day.
yeah, like please enjoy your food. Oh my gosh. And um how can you still go travel? How can you still go to that restaurant and not feel like you're being super strict? So that's what I like to it's kind of an exercise I like to do with people. Like, let's drop a pin. Let's look at this restaurant. Let's navigate the menu together. What looks like the most high protein, high fiber thing on the menu that I would choose personally? Where can we get some raw fruits and vegetables in the day? Can you walk to a cafe somewhere? Sometimes there's like cut up fruit. So that's really what I like to teach. It's like a mindset of how you're going to kind of navigate choices at a restaurant, in life, wherever you're at.
Yeah, I think so you mentioned fruits now a couple times, and I think I read something on Twitter that I was like, this is perfect. And they were saying if you want candy, just have a fruit because, it'll still kind of satisfy that craving, but it's nature's candy, right? That's what fruits are. So I also wanted to talk to you about this idea of eating right for your blood type. I know that when this book came out, it's called Eat Right for Your Type by Dr. Peter J. D'Adamo.
Mhm.
And his whole concept was there's four different blood types and there's four respective diets for those. And he got a lot of backlash. And his whole reasoning was, we spent your ancestors spent hundreds of years kind of eating one specific diet. And so he was arguing that your body has kind of evolved to use that or perform best with that diet. And I think this ties into what you were saying earlier of just like kind of eat what is right for you and not necessarily like, oh, my goal is X, Y, and Z. I have to eat this food, and I have to just have a carnivore diet. Well, maybe your body just doesn't respond to the carnivore diet the same way. Have you ever looked into something like that? What are your thoughts?
Personally, I have not. I have heard of it, and I'm actually pretty curious. So when you're explaining it to me, I want to go and research more about it before I speak on it. So I don't know too much to kind of cancel it out, or have any opinion on it. But whenever you started explaining it a little bit more of ancestry and kind of eating for what was the eating habits before you, how do I change that, I do like to think about DNA and genetics. So less about blood type and more about, yeah, like what did people in your past eat? Or obesity is a genetic disease, right? Are people in your family more prone to obesity? Do you have certain genetic factors that make you more prone to obesity? How can you combat that gene? And so it's really hard to reverse thousands of years of something that's not really in your control. But I do like to think about it. Like me specifically, I'm South Asian, and our ancestry is years of high carbohydrates, and also 100-year famine that happened during the British rule. So in India, there was like a lot of people going through starvation, and what that did is that altered our DNA to now hold on to fats, because we need to prepare for another famine or another starvation. And whatever food we get, we need to make sure we store it. So now we see a lot of South Asian people, South Asian women specifically, holding a lot of fat in their abdomen, around their legs, more disproportionately than to like the average woman, because obviously you still need to hold fat around your abdomen and your legs because that's something that female sex hormones do. But more disproportionately, we see more South Asians with diabetes, like I said, holding fat around certain areas because of that kind of ancestry. So I like to look at that. There's a lot of people in the U.S. that do have a genetic predisposition for obesity. Does that run in your family? What is in your control and what is not in your control? Because I don't want you to feel so harped down when there's something and a goal that you can't beat. When people are getting hard on themselves because they can't get under 200 pounds, like, let's reel it back. Like, what's in our control? How can I empower you through this process?
Yeah.
Versus make you feel like you're fighting against 1,000 years that are for you,
Yeah, just a losing battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? Because the United States has always like ranked number one in terms of obesity, like back to back to back years. Do you
Yeah.
think that has something to do with the culture here, or do you think it's a specific diet or exercise issue, or is it just that the food that we eat is just like, not at the same quality as some of the European countries, for example, where they have super strict regulations and that sort of stuff for chemicals and peptides or whatever. Not peptides,
So
pesticides.
I can go on like an hour tangent about this. This is like a whole separate episode on itself. Like, I think it needs its whole conversation. But okay, I was talking to my parents about this last night because it actually really frustrates me. I think the only sole reason I would ever move out of the US is because of our food system. Um, Yeah, it actually makes me really mad because a lot of these things are, we blame it on the people. Oh, Americans are lazy, it's their fault. No, our food, some of the foods, especially if you go into a grocery store, why is 90% of our grocery store shelved items and 10% are fresh? Like, why is nobody questioning that? Why are we shopping for a month's worth of grocery on the first, like, in one day? Like, we have a completely different system in America, the way that we see food, and we stock up and we do once a month and we go to Costco and we buy things in bulk, which is like okay, and I don't blame the people on that. Like, we don't pick up our produce the way that some people do in Europe after work so that they can make dinner.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to live in Italy and it was like you could just go to a small little grocery store and they don't have as many like big chain grocery stores,
Yeah.
but you could just pick up something fresh and walk out of there. And another thing that I noticed was the layout. You're 100% right because in the United States, I feel like you walk in order to check out, you have to walk through like all the aisles of the
Yep.
shelved items. Whereas we used to go to a store called Esselunga back in Italy, and it
Mhm.
was like you go to the produce section and the checkout is right there. You don't have to walk through all these
Like,
aisles. So
yeah.
it's definitely
Think
that Americans are not they're not lazy. I mean, we're building like AI, doing spaceships.
oh,
Like we're
yeah.
not lazy here.
We're, yeah, we are very smart. I think we're a very smart country in a whole. And when you really start learning about these things, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Like, I know too much information, but grocery stores are specifically designed by just professionals in psychology to know that everyone will get milk and cheese. Everyone will get dairy. So what they do is that they put that towards the end. You have to walk through all the aisles to always get towards the milk and dairy section. So every grocery store is designed where to the entrance towards what you really need, which is probably the milk, you have to walk through the whole grocery store, which makes you loop through all the aisles. Like, when you know all the psychology behind it and all the intentionality that goes behind it, I don't really blame people here. I think that there's a lot of things that started way before that we don't even know about, to trick us to buying certain things, and our consumerism is what's destroying us a little bit.
Yeah.
um,
And
and
it is what you
another,
said about like psychological impacts and like studying the psychology behind every step of
yeah,
like the way from buying all the way to checkout. I think I also read online that Walmart loses money on bananas, but they put them all the way in the back at super cheap for the exact reason that you just mentioned, so that people go to buy the cheap bananas, and along the
yeah,
way they get all this other stuff, and then the
um,
bananas are always in the corners, so you have to turn and then again
yeah,
walk through the shelves. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't think other countries think that deeply about the way that they're designing their grocery store. They're thinking,
Yeah.
how can I make sure that my people get the best produce and it's fresh and they're checking out really quickly? Like, I mean, I don't know if they do. I guess I don't know how to say on that, but I do know that in the US, it is designed for a certain reason. And not only the layout of the grocery store, the food itself that's on the shelf is designed to get you addicted. Like the artificial sweeteners that a lot of these shelf items have, your brain actually registers 10,000 times sweeter than real cane sugar. So let's say you think that you're being healthy drinking a Diet Coke. I like to teach my clients this. But what happens is that you don't absorb the sugar. So yes, like it is 0 calories, healthier in that way, but it all comes back to the brain. It all comes back to the psychology of things. Your brain registers it as 10,000 times sweeter. So what ends up happening is that you go about your day and or even to the next day, maybe you don't have the Diet Coke, but now your threshold for sugar is a lot higher. So to meet that, you're craving all these things to get there. And so that's kind of what I mean by design for addiction, where now you're not craving the Diet Coke, but you're craving all these other shelf items that are kind of on the shelf. And then um, I guess I can go into GLP-1s, but there is a lot of, I don't know if you know what GLP-1s is, glucagon-like peptide agonist, which is like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, all those weight loss medications, which I think can be really great. But what's happening is that people really need them to counteract their addictiveness to all this food noise in America. So I'm not pro or anti. Like I think there's a really good use case for this medication, but I think the medication is literally combating big food. So it's like big pharma versus big food. And now what's happening is that these food industries are now are getting together. Like, how can we design this to beat GLP-1s? Like, make sure it's addicting again. It's really concerning because we're not even thinking about food that's good for people. We're thinking about what can people buy and get addicted to.
Yeah, that's actually super interesting because it does feel like there's an industry that is incentivized, fatten you up, and then cure you with some kind of drugs or GLP-1s.
Yeah,
Um, but one thing about the Diet Coke stuff that I've like always had this question, and I don't know why I've never gotten an answer for it. But so you're saying that the reason why Diet Coke or like Coke Zero is bad for you is not necessarily because of the sugar content in it, but because the artificial sweeteners raise like your base threshold for how much sugar you need on a day-to-day basis,
yeah,
and that kind of is a gateway drug almost into
yeah,
just consuming a lot more sugar than you actually need. But let's say that somebody out there is super conscious of that stuff and they just want a Diet Coke every now and then.
yeah.
Is that actually as harmful, just the Diet Coke itself without taking into account the threshold increase for your sugar baseline? Is that as healthy, or is it actually healthier than normal Coke? Like, is Diet Coke nutritionally less damaging, I guess, than say something like normal Coke?
Just have the regular Coke. If you're
Okay.
someone which who you describe sounds like me, which is like, all right, I like I said, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes I wish I didn't know all this information, and now I'm living in a society where it's like, this marketing is making me eat this, and like, this is making me addicted to this. So I'm like, I am running through my life through the grocery store with now too much knowledge of what everything is doing to me. But when I want to enjoy myself and just I will have the Coke. Like I would rather you have the Coke and it doesn't raise this threshold in your brain. And so the next day you're going about your healthy lifestyle. Like I said, it's a balance here. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Go enjoy your Thanksgiving meal. Go enjoy that drink here. Go enjoy your Coke. But I would rather you have it with whole foods, real sugar, and not the artificial sweetener, because that's what raises the threshold. And I do think that one Diet Coke also won't really do it to you, but a lot of people are addicted to Diet Coke more than Coke. And you know why? Because of that threshold component. Like people have to have one every day, crack one open, 3 p.m. Like there's a specific time that people have it because it's more addicting than regular Coke. So yeah.
Right. And this is not a finance podcast, but imagine what that's doing to your bank account, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
constantly having to go get that. You're a dietitian. It seems like you know a lot about this sort of stuff. Did you learn all of it while doing your major, or like how does one gather all this knowledge about food, diet, nutrition?
That's a good question. So, no, I didn't learn all these things in my major. I think I'm just curious by nature, and especially when it comes to like the American system and the problem at like a macro level, I learned all of those things on my own, really just doing my own research and following my curiosities. When you're in school to become a dietitian, you learn the science. You learn chemistry, molecular chemistry, you learn biochemistry, microbiology. You learn the body in its most cellular form. So all the way down, it's very micro. So all these things I'm talking about are very macro issues in the US, in our system, in dieting, my approach, which I have formulated outside of school. In school, I learned a very micro approach. So when you eat protein, what's going down into your stomach, what enzymes are breaking it down to bring it to your intestine, what's breaking it down to bring it into where it gets absorbed in its most simple form, amino acid. And what does all the amino acids look like? What are the essential, non-essentials? What's the molecular structure of it? Everything that needs to happen for digestion, absorption, all those things are what you learn in dietetic school. And then
Like some
you
of the
also learn something called medical nutrition therapy, which gets applied clinically. So, or non-clinically, like outpatient, but you learn a lot more of how to match the nutrition solution to the disease state. So it's still very reactive care. If you are diabetic, how are we going to teach you now a diabetic friendly nutrition plan? If you now have kidney disease, what do you need to do to prevent further complications through nutrition? So it's still very like, oh, once you get this disease, this is the MNT, medical nutrition therapy, that we apply to it, versus when I got out of school, I knew I wanted to be more on the preventative side. And that was all, which is like kind of how we were talking about the last 5% of optimization. Like, what do you need to do in your 20s and 30s so that we're not just matching a solution to your disease state? What can I help you in your early in your life so that you never walk into a hospital? That's all that I had to learn outside of school. But I think in school, it was still very knowledgeable, bringing it down to the molecular level. It's actually funny because I have a molecule here. But this is what I learned in school. Okay, so I'm learning how all of this functions in your body, which I actually really enjoyed learning. I have a fascination for the human body. And so I took it further with nutrition.
Interesting. Yeah, so I think, well, I studied computer science, but I was always into health and fitness. But I do agree that college really gives you that super micro understanding,
Yeah,
and all the actual practical stuff, you actually have to go and experience that in the real world.
you
And
do.
then it's like, oh, this macro thing happens because of this micro thing under the hood. And some people don't even actually have to know the micro stuff, right? Like if
Yeah,
you're a professional, you should probably know. But I feel like for most people, if it feels good and if you feel healthy and you're waking up and you're like you have the energy, you should probably just keep doing what you're doing, you know?
exactly. I like that you
Yeah.
mentioned. I actually like to teach people that more than eat this diet. I like to help people reflect on how they feel rather than what they actually put in their body. So, like, what did you eat last week? And did you crash at 3 p.m. at work versus, okay, now you hit a whole week stride with energy all day, good sleep, like you felt good about yourself. And whatever that was, because that's going to look different for everyone, let's stick to that. And that's going to be way easier to stick to. And also, let's get away from the addiction of food, and how can I make you addicted to feeling good? Like how, like that's my biggest goal. How can I make you addicted to the feeling after you get of eating a healthy meal and just feeling really good about yourself? So I like to teach people that for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. I think in Europe and in Asia, whenever they eat, they don't really eat to get full. Whereas when I came here, it felt like you ate in order to get full, so then you can go take a nap. But one side effect I think was the energy levels. Like back in my home country, Uzbekistan, it's
Mm,
like sometimes breakfast doesn't have to be as heavy as people like make it out to be, right? They might
right.
have something that's fresh, they just woke up, and then lunch is kind of that heavier,
Yeah.
the first heavier meal, and then they close it off with dinner. And dinner's, I feel like in here there's not like a clear set time for dinner. Like some people will have dinner at 5 p.m., some
Mm,
people will have it at like 10 p.m. I
right.
know I've been guilty of like eating an hour or so before I go to sleep.
Mm.
But how does energy and I guess what you're eating and when you're eating it impact your energy levels on a day-to-day basis? Have you seen any trends
Um,
that maybe you could share with us?
yeah, definitely. I have seen a lot of trends with this. Um, it is It is against nuance. It's very varied from person to person. Some people can have a huge breakfast and then that like sustains them. They're like ready to go for the day. Then they have like a protein bar in the middle and like a yogurt, and then they have a big dinner. Like, cool, if that works for you. For a lot of people, that doesn't work though. I do find that having something fresh, like you said, in the morning, I like to do fruits in the morning rather than fruits later in the day because it is with sugar. And so you want to make sure that you get good sleep. So, how can your breakfast be something light, filling, and still energizing? And so that tends to be like, let's say, a chia seed pudding, for example. That's gonna be light. We'll add some protein powder to it. It should keep you full, but it won't be something that is so it makes you feel lethargic, like something so heavy, like eggs and like two sausage and a piece of toast. Versus, okay, you had your little chia pudding and some fruit and some protein powder, and then for lunch, I have found that breaking it up into two helps people say with sustained energy. So instead of having like this big ol' lunch, maybe you do like a fruit and some nuts and a protein bar, like a snack at around 12 when you feel like a dip in energy, and then that keeps you going for 2 hours. And then at 2, you have like a salad with some protein, something kind of there as well, maybe some crackers and a dip. But splitting that bigger middle meal into two, especially if you have a long day ahead of you, I have found to really help with sustained energy. Another thing is that I know I don't prescribe a certain style of dieting, even though I do like to push for something similar to the Mediterranean diet. But I have found that plant-based for breakfast and lunch and animal protein for dinner works for people for if they have this dip in energy. So maybe do tofu instead of like chicken for lunch, because the tryptophan, so tryptophan is one of your amino acids. It's what makes you sleepy, and it tends to be in more animal-based protein. It's kind of why when you have a Thanksgiving meal that you were very sleepy after, that's because turkey has tons of tryptophan in it, and that tryptophan makes you really sleepy. And so if you have animal-based protein at lunch, you might feel like you want to take a nap, versus I found that if you have like a chickpea bowl or like a tofu grain bowl, and you're able to sustain that energy. So for some people, that plant-based early in the morning and at lunch, and then having like maybe a piece of salmon with some vegetables, like roasted vegetables at night, that style really helps with sustained energy. No crashing out in the middle of the day, no taking naps. um Hopefully that, I know that was
Yeah,
a little tangent.
that was like I've actually never heard of that, like I
Okay.
guess hack we're gonna call it. And I know again you don't want to like generalize, but that
No.
might be something that people want to, try out and just see how they feel at the end of the day,
Yeah,
right?
try it out, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, like what we do in my sessions is literally trial and error. Like we're like, okay, you're gonna try this week, see if it works for you. And if it does, then cool, we'll add to it. If it doesn't, we'll change it. Let's scratch that. Let's figure out something that's going to work this week in your life. And then you start hitting a stride. So you get to a point when you reach a health system framework that just every week is good, energy is good, sleep is good. And that's where we get into optimization. But yeah, where can
Yeah, I
we
mean,
stride? Yeah.
let's get into the optimization. How would you approach a client that is ready to, like you said, they're ready, they're healthy, they're young, and they're trying to go for that aesthetics look,
Yeah.
kind of broad shoulders, all that, for men at least. And then on the counter side for women, I feel like a lot of women really focus on weight loss and kind of glutes, leg muscles. So, how would you approach those two clients?
Yeah. So both of them similarly. This is where tracking gets really important. So I have had a few clients recently where they come in and that first initial consult, I like to take something called a 24-hour recall. So just tell me everything you ate yesterday. Like let me get like the first look as to what you're doing, right? Um, and I'll find that I'm like, wow, this is like a perfect day. Like, why do you need me? Why are you here, right? And that's when they're here for that 5%. Um, and so then I would ask them to track their whole week, like everything. Tell me everything you ate. Send me your wearable data. Send me how you're sleeping. Send me how many steps you get in the day. Send me your resting heart rate. Um, and then I ask them their goals because their goals tend to be more specific rather than just like weight loss. Maybe if it's a weight loss, there's a specific pound, like I want to get to this certain weight. Um, Recently, I had someone who wanted to lower their resting heart rate. So these tend to be more specific goals. Also, it's important to, if you have a lower resting heart rate, that just shows your kind of athleticism, that you're able to still deliver the same amount of oxygen with less beats per minute. So that's a sign of fitness. But yeah, so the approach to this population tends to be more granular. That's when a lot of data needs to come in for me to understand, like, what are these fine-tuned things that we need to add. I'll maybe sometimes have them get a blood test done. For the female side, I like to look at a hormonal panel. Is the workouts you're doing raising your cortisol, making you hold on to certain body weights? Do we need to switch these two resistant training days to a recovery day? It gets really granular. I want to look at everything in your life. I want to look at how stressed you are at work, what time you're going to bed, what time you're waking up. And typically, like I said, a lot of these people in my mind have like a perfect day of eating. So I'm like, why are you here? But it's just about fine tuning things. So if you're, and a lot of it is about accountability. Like a lot of these people know what to do, but they need someone to, which I'm glad to be that person, to log on to once a week saying like A plus, right? Like you crushed it, like you're killing it at the gym, it looks good. Like, and sometimes I log off those calls and I'm like, did I really help them out? Like, did I even add value there? Because they don't need me. But for a lot of these people, so for women specifically, I see this happening when women are about to get married. 6 months before they'll start planning for like their wedding day, which is like really exciting. I have a few clients that are doing that, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. But that's where it gets really granular. Like, okay, we're going to do 10K steps a day. We are going to reach these goals. You're going to get this much grams of protein. And I will keep track of all that data for them. And then when they show up to their Zoom call or their session with me, we're reflecting. I'm like giving them words of encouragement, like keep it going, you're doing good. Maybe we can add this supplement here. Maybe we can do this. But it's very granular. It is not like these it doesn't feel like nutrition 101 where you're explaining these concepts. It feels like, okay, you got this. How can I support you to keep going? Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned there that some days you're like, do you even need me? Like, what am I doing? I
Yeah.
think that like encouragement whenever things are going right is probably the most useful use case to have a professional helping you out with some of this stuff, because sometimes like I'll go to the gym and I feel great. Like I'll work out, push out the reps. I know that I had like a great diet that day, and sometimes, like, I wish that somebody else could also acknowledge that I did good. And sometimes I just use the app. Sometimes I hop on Avro and I'm like, press, and all the rings are complete. It tells me like all the workouts that I did, which
Right.
feels good. But it's different whenever you have an actual human being that knows their stuff and they're actually able to tell you, hey, you had a great week. Like, keep
Yeah.
at it. If anything, that just like reinforces that
Yeah.
those
I bet.
habits.
I bet. Like I said, I'm looking at all your data, and if I give you a high five and an A plus, then I do see that working. And honestly, maybe I need to go see a dietitian myself to see what that feels like. Because I think it's a psychological thing to come back to it. You know, you're going about your day, they're tracking their meals, and I'm seeing it real time, right? So on my portal, I'm seeing what you have for breakfast. And if something looks like really delicious, I'll even put a heart by it and they'll get the message that I hearted it. So it feels like I'm like along the way with you, right? And so I can see that being very encouraging during a time where you're trying to get to that top 5% of your health and you're really just trying to get really granular with it. And I could see that a lot of my clients, they're like, I know I was going to meet with you this week, so I went at it. Like, I did my best. And I was like, that's good. So I think it's the thing of the anticipation of the weekly call or the bi-weekly call keeps people accountable. So I find that in that population, it's less about me teaching and more about, I'll help you out here and there, but how can I give you the space for 1 hour once a week for you to reflect, feel good about what you're doing, help you out, whatever you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So we talked a lot about diet and the importance it has with your energy and the psychology that I guess you kind of build towards food. Um, let's get into a little bit of exercise. How do you approach exercise? Are you also as fluid with workouts as you are with kind of the diet? Do you kind of take a full holistic approach? Because it seems like for diet, you're not just looking at the food. You said you're looking at your wearables, your sleep metrics, your energy levels. How do you approach exercise?
Pretty much the same. So, like I said, when it comes to dieting, I don't want to give you this huge plan that feels like a chore. So that maybe like life is just not as black and white as a meal plan is. You know, you're going to go through grief and you're going to go through hard times. And I actually, like, when I have clients who start with me and everything is good and then something hits them, I actually tell them, I'm glad that I'm here because this is going to give you a real life example of how to stick to some health goals while you're, and like how I can support you while you're going through it. Because this is life is just not always easy. So same thing when it comes to exercise. Like when you're on a week that you're feeling really good about yourself, crushing it at work, whatever that looks like, you're probably going to crush it more at the gym, you know, versus a week where I actually like sometimes I can sense people's energy when they get on a call. And so I won't even get into exercise. I'm like, how's your mental health today? Like, what are the things that we really need to talk about? And then when you hop off the call, do you want to just do like a 15-minute walk to go reflect? And maybe that week looks really different. And so taking away from, oh, I need to get in the gym 5 times a week to I need to listen to my body. And how can I help people get to a very intuitive place where they're listening to their body and their mind and their soul and what they need in that moment? Maybe there is a week that work crushed you, and you just can't make it to the gym, but you can do a 30-minute reflection walk each day. And that actually helps your mentalness, and then it helps you kind of stick to health goals. It's all about consistency. I think in life, it's all about what you stick with and the momentum versus if you did nothing for a week, it's going to make it really hard the next week to get back to the gym versus you did that 30-minute walk each day. It's consistency, it builds momentum, and you're feeling good about yourself again. You're right back at it at the gym. So same fluidity with nutrition comes exercise. You know, with nutrition, there's weeks where your mental health is down. You tend to reach for food for comfort. So instead of looking at food as like, I need to get my chicken breast and my broccoli, you're looking at it like, I want chicken noodle soup. I want this food for comfort. You're still hitting your macro goals, but you're approaching it in a different way that your body needs in that moment. So trying to take exercise in a very intuitive way, like I said, there's weeks where, especially for women who have more of a hormonal cycle and fluctuation, how can you listen to your body on the days that it doesn't want to go and give it what it needs? Yeah.
Right. And no, I've definitely experienced that feeling where, it's a long day at work. You end up
Yeah.
working until like 7, 8 p.m. And I think during those days, like those are the hardest days when I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to, and even just like getting in your car and driving to the gym makes it so that when you go in there, you might not, do your traditional like heavy lifts or super high intensity. Maybe you just, go on the stair climber or the stairmaster for a few minutes. Or the walking thing is also, I think, such a hack that people don't understand, especially for cities where it's super car heavy.
Mm,
Like I'm in Dallas, Texas. And it's like you don't really get a chance to walk from place to place. You got to get in a car and you drive there.
very
Whereas
true.
a place like New York, you get, 10,000 steps just by being in the city.
Yeah.
And I think the steps especially, if you have 10,000 steps, you're probably burning like what, 500 calories or so
Yeah,
that day.
you're burning a lot.
And yeah, that's basically how much you burn, give or take, whenever you do like a session at the gym, right?
Yeah.
And the great thing about the steps is that because you're getting out of bed and you're walking to your car, even if it's just your car, you don't start at zero.
Mm,
So you're at least, again, psychologically, you feel like you're already gotten a little bit. Maybe you just, go on a walk with your dog, which actually, let me do a quick shout out to my puppy. Piper girl, come here. Come here, Piper. Come here. I think this will go great on clips.
oh, yeah.
So ay, ay, ay. So yeah, we go on walks pretty
Cute.
often,
So cute.
and she's probably like the reason why I am still, even though I'm working as a software engineer, she's kind of the reason why I'm still active a lot. When I
Yes,
don't want to go to the gym, it's like
you gotta take
she's gonna
Piper
have fun.
out. Yeah, you gotta take Piper out. I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to note is that what can you do even when your body doesn't want to go to the gym to just stay consistent? Because the hardest part is starting. So if you have those hard days at work, you might find yourself skipping the gym for 3 days. And then that fourth day, it's like, oh my gosh, like I got to get up, I got to do this. Versus if for 3 days, maybe you went to like a golf range and just played some golf and like kicked some balls and like went on a walk, it still feels like you're in your health plan, like you didn't just fully fall off and you got to start all over again. So, um, yeah, just don't burn out from exercise. Find a
right,
system and find a way that keep the ball pushing up the hill, even though if it's just an inch. Some
right,
weeks it's gonna feel like you're pushing the ball up the hill and you're making these huge strides with working out, and you're pushing it up 5 feet. And some weeks are gonna feel like 5 inches. But as long as you're
right.
pushing it up the hill, it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess staying in this theme of exercise, you said you used to live in Miami, which is
Yeah.
probably the most popular fitness-based city. Like if you're fit or if you want to become an influencer in fitness, go to
Yeah.
Miami. There's a beach, there's a reason for you to be shirtless. And
Yeah.
so, but you chose to move to Austin,
Yeah.
and we talked a little bit about this before the podcast. You're now thinking of starting your own fitness studio. I'm saying your own fitness studio, but it's
Mm,
like a franchise. I don't even know how to like approach that.
yeah.
So Yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about why did you want to kind of cover both sides of this health and fitness subject, right? Both your diet, you already have the knowledge there, and now you actually have a brick and mortar place in Austin.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was in Miami, you're right, gym capital, one of the gym capitals, there's a lot of cities built like Miami. There's like Boulder, Colorado, has one of the highest life expectancies in America. Per person, average person has 4 bikes. So very fit city, very random, Boulder, Colorado, right? And then you have like LA, which honestly, I see LA as the mecca of new health and wellness trends, right? That's kind of like where the Pilates girl movement started. Like things kind of start there, and then they also start in Miami, but like there's other kind of spots in the US, but Miami was definitely one of them. Like you said, you gotta be shirtless all year round. You got to look good, you got to look sharp, and I think that's very motivating. Like there's a clear difference when I go to the gym in Miami versus other parts of the US where you can tell people are like, this is like their whole life, like they love it, right? And they're doing it consistently, and they want to look good. For a lot of reasons it is vanity, but it's still inspiring that they do it very consistently and they're doing it every single day. What made me want, so I am opening up a gym in Austin, and it's the reason I did move to Austin. I would never leave Miami, but I had to move for good opportunities. I do really miss Miami. Exercise was always my first love. So like I said, I did kinesiology, like exercise physiology in my undergrad program. And that is where I got into nutrition because it was a way that you can enhance your results of the gym with nutrition. But really, to start, like, I really love performance. I really love when humans push themselves to the max. Like, I really thought I wanted to get into sports stuff when I was in college, and that's what I was working with. I worked with the University of Oklahoma sports team in Miami. I worked with the University of Miami sports team. Really, really like when humans push themselves to the max. And I think even if you are not an athlete, that could be done in the gym. And it's really cool to see that. Like, you know, you're hitting PRs and you're hitting your reps and you're hitting certain goals there. And I also really love the gym because I treat it like a clinic. Like I treat it like people coming to me so they add 10 years to their life. It's like a prescription. Like instead of buying a membership, you're buying a prescription. It's like you're going to Walgreens or you're going to your doctor's office. But I like to treat it like a clinic, and it's the best gift that you can give someone. Is the gift of exercise, really, because it's really the way that you can add not more years to their life, but more years where they're playing with their grandkids and they have all this energy to take care of them. And it's really it's a great place for people to come together and have a community and be healthy at the same time and kind of find people just like them. So it was definitely a business that in Miami I was looking at getting into. I am a Pilates girl at heart, so I was looking at a few Pilates franchises. And then me and my boyfriend came across something called ISI, which stands for Iron Sharpens Iron. We tried their location in Texas when we were back in Austin. That's where his parents are from. And then we also tried it out in Brickell, which is in Miami, and we kind of fell in love with it. It's a good combination of both men and women in the class, which is nice. Yeah, we really like the concept as a whole. It's similar to CrossFit, less intense and less heavy on the weights, more cardio endurance focused. So it's a nice balance between strength training and CrossFit, I would say. And we got accepted, or I don't even know how to explain the process, but we got, I guess, accepted to be franchise partners, which you have to not only like do you want to invest in this business opportunity, but on the corporate side, on HQ, they want to make sure that you're a good fit for the brand. And so my boyfriend flew to South Carolina where their HQ is at, and it was just a good fit for their end and our end as well, like who we are as people and who they were as a brand. Austin is a very good market. I think it's kind of like second mecca to health and wellness. There's a lot of running clubs there. Lots of running
Yes.
clubs. That's like
They have
their
like
thing.
golden doodle run
Yeah,
clubs, like
it's
so
just like
niche.
it can get very niche because there are so many. So you got to find within the running clubs your people, right? Like there's so many of them that you got to find like your wedge into the running club kind of scene out there.
Right.
Um,
And for your studio, is it going to be mostly just like classes that people can sign up to and show up for? Or is there a lot of like free ways? Like, I feel like in big box gym, it's just like, here's all the equipment, go, like, be free, child, you know?
Yeah, no, it is classes, which that is the whole, I think that's why we really fell in love with the brand because when you usually go to these group classes, you're kind of on your mat or you're in the gym, you're doing your thing and you're like putting your head down and you're lifting or whatever. Like you're kind of just in and out. You don't speak to a single soul. Like I found that to happen a lot when I would go to Pilates. I'm on my reformer. I put my head down. I'm like saying bye to the instructor and then I'm out of there. Like I didn't talk to a single girl in there. But the thing about ISI is that it's very community based. So the coach in there makes it very encouraging to like high-five your neighbor, empower them, like keep them going. You're like kind of in it together. You're doing really hard stuff by pushing 75 pounds down the turf, but your teammates are helping you out. So it feels like kind of like when you're back in high school or college and you're on a basketball team, and you're encouraging your teammates out to kind of push themselves to the max. So it's group fitness coaching. You go in, you have almost like a personal trainer who's going to set you through like these are what we're focusing on today. These are the blocks that we're doing and we're going to rotate, and then you kind of get into it and you encourage each other out and you get through a really hard workout and you feel good about it. And afterwards they have like happy hours, so maybe you go grab a drink with the person you just worked out with. So that's kind of the cool thing about this brand that we're getting into, and we're building out in Austin.
Very interesting. And yeah, I think overall, exercise and just being fit, it's not about like the one thing that you have to do. It's more of a lifestyle. And a big
Yeah,
part of that lifestyle is the people that you surround yourself with because like humans are naturally like social creatures, right? So if you
yeah,
can't find the people that share that same kind of lifestyle, it's very hard to stick to it. And that's why like a lot of people go to the gym with a buddy. And they might also just there's also people that go to the gym just to get their maybe they have too much social stuff outside and that's kind of their safe zone and they do want to just kind of like
yeah,
close up. They know
definitely.
what they know exactly what they want to do, but for the majority of people, what makes them stay fit is the community that they basically subscribe to, right?
Yeah, no, I like that you said that. And like the thing that you want to train the head coach on is being aware of what that person needs. Like you can tell when a person just wants to put their head down, and you'll know
Mm,
that kind of early on for the members. So you want to keep the membership small but very intimate and really get to know the people. And they stick around. They love the product. But and you realize that some people don't need to be talked to. So like let's not go up to them. Let's let them do their thing, so they can get out and enjoy themselves. Yeah.
right. And this again goes back to not forcing anyone to do
Yeah.
something that they don't like because that'll just push them away. If they do want to go in and just put their head down and push
Yeah.
some reps out, then yeah.
You love
So,
it.
yeah. You did talk about how you had to basically get approved for to be a franchise partner. So I guess if somebody that's, they have a few clients, they have a few $1,000s in MRR,
Yeah.
what can they do to first of all start building a relationship with either a brand or thinking about starting up their own fitness studio? Like, how's that go? Like, what's the first thing that you should do? And then where do you go from there?
Yeah. I mean, everyone in HQ for this brand has been very kind in reaching out. But even before, when I was exploring other franchises, like I said, for Pilates, it was very easy to reach out to these people. They actually, for a lot of these franchises, so any gym that you go to, I would check their website first. Do they franchise? Or is there a certain product or a certain group fitness class that you love so much? Like, do they franchise? Check that out first. Go to the website, get in contact. There's usually a contact person, and they will be the one to reach out to you. They want to do business with you. They want more locations, right? It's like it benefits them as much as it benefits you. So don't be afraid to reach out. These people, I was reaching out to franchises at 24, like very young. So don't feel like you're not young or too old enough or whatever that looks like. When it comes to capital, that is something you'll have to figure out. Maybe you'll have to raise funds. Maybe you take out a small business loan. So that will be kind of your second point of priority to figure out. But first things first, always reach out. Maybe say, hey, this is something I find really interesting. Like the Pilates thing, I was pretty much talking to them for a few months. So I wasn't like, I'm going to do this right away. Then I reached out. It was like, let me just explore this. Like I said, go explore your curiosities. Is this something that you want to open and see if it's a good fit? So go start talking to people would be my first priority. If you feel like you really like the product and you really see yourself wanting to own and operate a gym, then kind of take that next step, which would be, you know, figuring out the capital. How much do you need to put up front? What are kind of the first steps that they would expect? Would it be a good fit between the brand and you as a person? Location, do they already have locations in your city? Would you have to move, like kind of how I did, where for Miami, there was a guy who already had secured 3 territories. So in the future, in the next 5 years, that was his. Like we weren't going to be able to kind of reach for that. So same for Austin, you know, we got 3 territories here. So you really got to figure out, does it match in the city that you're in? But, you know, I think if you really want to do it, you can do it. You know, it might be a few things to figure out, but I think if this is something that you really want to do and it aligns with your personal life goals and who you are as a person, go for it.
Interesting. I wanted to touch up a little bit more on the capital side of it because I feel like that's the number one thing that stops trainers from opening up their own studio. So you don't have to give us the specifics here, but are we thinking of like you got to have single digit thousands, double digit thousands, 6 figures? And how does that differ between working with a franchise and the risk that comes with that compared to the risk that comes with starting your own thing from scratch without any partners? How does that work?
Okay, so there's a few parts to that question. I want to start with, should you franchise or should you start your own? And I do think that if you are starting with less capital, it might be easier to start your own, because what you could do if you're a personal trainer is that you can start building up your own clientele. There are spaces that rent out space, so you don't even necessarily need to buy the lot and like put together all these classes for a day. It could just be, hey, my name's Trevor, at 6 p.m. every Wednesday, we're meeting here. And you start building up this clientele. And that's what's really going to help you when you actually get to a point where you reach enough capital to build your own space out, because you're going to have people in your door day one. And so I don't think it needs to completely be this whole gym day one. If that is like one of your long-term goals, you can slowly move up towards it. And then secondarily, if you're doing a franchise, there is like a huge franchise fee. I don't know if I can get into the numbers, but it's like 5 digits that you have to pay up front to work with the franchise, because they do a lot of the work for you. So that's the nice thing about doing the franchise. They will outsource and give you the contractor, the people who are going to do the build out, the real estate guy to help you find the gym and find the lease. So these are not all things that you got to go do your own. So it is a big hefty fee, but it's like there's a reason for that fee. They do the marketing for you. You don't have to do any of that. So the risk is more in building your own gym, but if you do it properly, like I said, that you already have 100, 200 people behind your belt, like you've built this, people who really believe in you and yourself as a product, that will follow. Because at the end of the day, our gym is only as good as our coaches. And if some of them are already coming with people who really trust them as the coach, like we are no good without our coaches, right? So it's really about building your own coaching brand, and then kind of going from there. So weighing out the risk of doing it on your own, and if you have a huge following, just do it on your own. Versus me, like I'm not coming with all these clients in Austin, and for me, it was a good investment opportunity to be a part of this brand. really outsource a lot of the things and still build a really good product that people come into at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and what you said about kind of you can always start building your clientele seems to kind of be a recurring theme because
Yeah.
Terry, the strength training coach, he was a trainer at a big box gym, and then his buddy offered him like basically to rent out a portion of a
Mm,
different gym, a little fitness studio, and he was able to already have like, a handful of clients that were willing to go with him, leave that gym and follow him just because they liked the training style and all that good stuff. And
yeah.
eventually, now he actually owns his own place in Granbury, Texas. And so, like,
Nice.
I guess the biggest thing is like you should probably, and I have no experience with opening up my own thing, but it sounds like you want to build a little bit of experience and kind of have at least referrals, right? Because even with you, you probably have some clients who know somebody that it lives in Austin, and that might even be something that right now you might not even like look at and be like, oh, this is definitely going to happen. But in the future, you might be like, oh, like the reason why we had these first 5, 6 clients is because of all these people that were referred via my other business. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. In my
Cool.
case, like, no one's coming into my gym for me. Like the gym is
Mhm.
not tied because like Nickie Patel is opening it. It is more so like we're taking the other route where you're spending more
Mm.
on ad dollars, meta ads to get people into the door, running pre-launch events to get their awareness out. So
Yeah, I guess for your case, it really does make sense to go with a franchise where you have basically a whole staff like backing you up, right? Like they can take care of the accounting, all that good stuff. You said the marketing, the construction, which it's like, how do you even build something, right?
yeah, you
So
know what? You would actually be surprised that the construction is fairly simple. Um,
really,
the build out takes 6 weeks.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that that's fast. I feel like a lot of other construct like roads are like,
Yeah.
those take like
Not a
forever,
road.
but
Not
yeah.
but also the product it's nice because it's not huge treadmill equipment. It's a whole bunch of free weights, turf, which is good because you can get into the calisthenics thing more than like these huge equipment squat racks type of thing. So less of
Right.
a build out, more of an empty room to kind of have free ground of how you do the training. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, Nikki. Well, thank you so much for your time. I feel like I learned a lot. I just learned like a lot about just diet, how to go about, starting your own business. Any message you want to say to the audience? Any parting words?
Um, if you had to walk away with one thing when it comes to nutrition, find something you could stick at. Like I said, to find something that always keeps the ball moving up the hill and just keep going at it. And
Yeah,
whatever is something that you feel like is a chore, I would run the other direction. So
cool. Enough said. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Bye bye.